Good day, everybody. Today, I'm going to be doing something very interesting. It's going to be a three-part series concerning Power BI on the principles or the topics of part one, which will be for today's video. It's going to be how to connect to an Acumatica database with Power BI. And then part two will be how to change or manipulate the data in Power BI itself. And then part three will be how to visualize in Power BI. So after we've received the data and after we've worked with the data, and how do we make it look nice or make it presentable so people will understand and see the insights that they require. All right, so I'm going to jump right into it. So as I said, part one will be on how to connect to a SQL Server database or a SQL Server and then connect to an Acumatica database. So first things first is always just make sure that your SQL Server is correct or installed on the correct PC. And of course, you have access to it. It's very important that you have access to the server. If you do not have access, it will ask you for a password. If you do not know the password, you will not retrieve your data. Okay. So I have Management Studio open here. And as you can see, I currently have here on the left-hand side, I've got 3 databases. It's just demo databases that I work with. And for today, I want to connect to the Acumatica database. So in the front-end system, which is Acumatica, we have captured so many invoices, purchase orders. I want to see which amounts or what totals are in which accounts and so on. Sure, you can do it in SQL Server by writing some queries and scripts and procedures in order to retrieve the information that you'd want to see. But not everybody pertains that type of skill set. Hence why that they've designed BI tools such as Power BI and Tableau and ClickView in order to make it easier and simpler for the end user in order to work with this data. So for today's purposes, we're going to use Power BI as a BI tool of choice. So I want to connect to the Acumatica database and I want to look at the data. I'm going to minimize over here and I'm going to open up Power BI. And as one can see, there's quite a lot of buttons. And of course, the new update, everything is now nicely painted and the filters, it looks very great. I want us to divert our attention to the top left-hand side where it says external data on the ribbon. So you'll see there's 4 tabs there. There's the query editor. You can enter manually data. You can check your recent sources that you've connected to. And for today, we want to get data. So the first step in working with data is in order to extract the data. Okay, so we want to extract the information. It either being from a SQL server, a MySQL server, a Teradata server, from the cloud or anywhere, Azure server, AWS. There are various types of databases or places that house the data. Okay. For today, we're just going to extract the data from SQL Server. So I'm going to click on Get Data, and you can see there's a lot that they choose, the most common ones. And for today, I'm just going to click on SQL Server. Now, there will be a few questions or requirements that are needed in order to get the data or extract the data. And then if you look at the server, that's the server name. Where you get the server name is you can go to Management Studio. And then when you say connect there, if you follow my mouse, you'll see that it says the server name. So currently I have access to 2 servers, AIT PC and Francois PC, which is mine. So all I do is I can just copy that. And I can go back and I can paste it there. You'll see there's a little attention sign there. It says that you can also enter a port number. So let's say your server is in the cloud or it's living on a remote desktop. You can use the port number or the registered IP port number for it. And then of course you need to make sure that your inbound and outbound rules of the firewall is structured, and you can connect to remote desktops or remote servers and connect data like that. That's very cool. We've done it a few times here and it actually works very nicely. Then it says database optional. So if you want to connect straight to the database, you can do it. It's not really going to make the performance much faster, but you can do it. For today, I'm not going to use the database. Then you've got 2 connectivity modes or connectivity types. You can import or direct query. So an import query means it's going to import all the information from the SQL Server database into the Power BI file. So it's going to be very RAM intensive on your computer because it needs to house that or access that memory. It's storing that memory for you to use it. Direct query means every single time you, let's say you make a bar graph and you want to interact with it, it's going to run that query every time. So if you want to run direct query, that's going to cause it to run the query or the script the whole time into SQL and then post it back to Power BI. If you want to design your model in Power BI, I would always suggest using import mode, because then the data is already stored there as a temporary housing, or it's cached. You can just start working with it and directly doing your formulas and everything. And then, of course, SQL statements, you can write your direct queries. If you want to write the queries direct, you can do that in there as well. Very interesting fact is, if you want to work with stored procedures, it's as simple as just saying execute and then the procedure name, and it will run further from you. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to say connect to the server, and I want to do an import query because I want to manipulate and work with the data. And I'm going to say, okay. Now what it's doing is looking for the server, and it's going to pick it up. And yes, I've got access to it. Now, as you can see, it picks up that there's 3 databases connected to the server. Is this true? Yes, it's true. There are only 3 databases. So for today, I'm going to work with the Acumatica database. And if you open it, you'll see that there are different types of icons. So the one with the double screen, it's called a view. So a view is a collection of tables that was written in SQL Server in order to get a holistic view or an overall view. So for instance, connecting the account table to the ledger table to the client table, getting that all together. Instead of writing the queries every time, you can just create a view. Views will always be shown first, as they usually have more data in it. And then, of course, or more important data. Then, of course, you get your separate tables that you can work with. So what I'm going to do is I want to, maybe in this 3-part series, I want to create an income and expenses report. So I want to compare all my income versus all my expenses over a certain period of time. And with Acumatica data, you can do this. This is what makes Acumatica so great to work with, especially with the databases. It's very well structured, it's nicely placed, and the data is very clean. And the headers make a lot of sense. It's easier to read as well. So if I were to choose an account and I want to choose a client as an example, this is just for demonstration purposes. So I think it is customer. Yes, there's my customer. And then it will load it. It will give you like a preloaded view here. It's just a preview mode. So it's just showing you, is this the correct information I want to work with? Yes, it is. And then in the next part, we're going to explain on how you can transform the data. So we can extract, then transform it, and then we're going to load it, and then we're going to start visualizing it. So the next part, the transform, is actually where you're going to need a little bit of SQL knowledge and, of course, a good knowledge of Power BI and how to work with the query mode. I'm just going to quickly run through. So once you've opened up Power BI, it's as simple as clicking on Get Data, SQL Server, or which server or data mode you want to work with. Place a server name, say OK, and it will populate everything that you have access to. Just another cool tip or another cool feature of Power BI is the amount of connectors that you do have in this system. So as you can see, you've got the Excel, you've got text, CSVs, PDFs, IBMs, you've got SAP, you've got many working here. You've got a lot of Azure, which is great. That's it. Thank you very much for joining me in part 1, which is just how to connect to an Acumatica database or a SQL Server database. And then please follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and on YouTube, because there's a lot of cool content coming out on YouTube. Our content is just growing significantly. And then please follow me for part 2. Thank you.